Hello and welcome to the In Touch Show. 160 minutes left this season, all to play for a massive semi-final on Friday night, of course, to find out who will be playing St Helens at Old Trafford after their standout performance against Wigan. But there is another big award on the line. It is, of course, the Steve Prescott Man of Steel Award, and I'm delighted to be joined by the only man ever to win it back-to-back, Paul Sculthorpe. Welcome on.
Thank you.
Scotty, first up, this is probably quite a general question, but what does it take to win these awards? I
think the biggest thing with the Man of Steel is consistency. I think he's been consistently, good performer throughout the year, and then obviously having what impact you can have on your team's performances. And
a new structure to it, of course. This year we've gone to a panel. Each game in the regular season had points assigned 3-2-1 for the top three players in the game. You've been part of that process. Just explain a little bit of what you were looking for.
Yeah, pretty much. Obviously, yeah. There's a 3-2-1 point system for every game. There's 20 plus legends of the game, either past winners or ex-international players who go to the games and then select the best three performers. Pretty much looking for a bit of everything. Obviously, their input on offence and defence as well, and what influence they have on their team's performance and result.
And we have a short list for this year award. We've got Liam Watts from Castleford, Blake Austin from Warrington, Lachlan Coote from Saints, and then a couple of halfbacks in there as well, George Williams of Wigan and Jackson Hastings of Salford, of course. What have you made of the kind of individual talent levels this year?
Yeah, I think some great nominees. Obviously, five worthy nominees, and who have had all our big seasons and in different positions as well. Great to see Liam Watts have a shout for all the big guys out there who don't get the glory they deserve. I think he's been outstanding for Castleford. Obviously, a very different kind of prop to the likes of Luke Thompson. He's more of a ball playing ball playing prop, and had an impact on the way Cass play this year. Obviously, Lachlan Coote, he's been outstanding for Saints in his first year. Probably one of the big indicators for Saints of where the ball goes. And had some great assists this year as well as getting over the whitewashing himself. And then you've got obviously George Williams, Jackson Hastings. Two players who, when they usually play well, their team play as well. I think Jackson's been consistently good from day one throughout that, and obviously had a massive impact on where Salford have finished in the season and now kicked on to the semi-finals. George had a bit of an iffy start to the year. I think as soon as the news come out about him moving to Canberra. I think that obviously helped his game. Yeah.
And we'll start off looking at Liam Watts in a bit of detail. Obviously, not involved in the playoff system anymore after Cass went out, but hugely important for them to even make the five. Liam Watts was central to all of that, and he's thrown some pretty impressive numbers up. 937 tackles, 3,160 metres. Perhaps the most impressive one is 62 offloads, which is the most in the league. When you're playing off the back of a player that can redistribute the ball and promote the ball from those positions, how much of an attacking platform and a benefit has that been to his side?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think that's the way Castleford like to play as well. And Liam Watts really suits their game. So you look at the number of offloads that he's given, and when you're trying to defend that, you're always making double efforts on defence, and obviously the attack are running at broken defences. So he obviously creates a lot of space around him with that offload and a lot of room for the Castleford attack to play on the back of.
And obviously playing in the middle spelled, throughout games as well. He does do big minutes, Liam Watts, but it makes it all the more impressive, doesn't it? Really, 937 tackles when he's not on the pitch for 80 minutes every game. It is some effort.
Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah, I think his fitness levels have certainly come on, at Castleford, from previous. And it's told in his performance, and defensively is one of that. As you say, when you're not playing 80 minutes week in, week out, to still do that number of work rate and have that impact on a game, he's obviously had a great year.
And people often talk about building teams from kind of the props outwards in terms of setting the foundation. how much confidence do you have as a player when you know you've got middles that are just going to cut it in all day and consistently find the front, consistently find quick rocks in the way that Liam wants to?
It's massive. It's massive as a player. You know what's in front of you, and teams need that. You know, any good side has got a good pack that has to go forward first and find that floor and get that speed of the play ball. The whole game now is about the speed of the play of the ball. You know, we've seen the hooking game change, you know, over the years. It's, you know, you look at the pace of some of the guys now and the ability to jump out of dummy half, and everything comes on the back of that. So them big fellas, them forwards, you know, certainly the props, they're the ones that get that ball rolling.
And, you know, Cass, a team under Darryl Powell that has played such, you know, really good expansive football, you know, throughout the seasons. Probably given the injury situation they've had this year, they'll be pleased with just getting into the playoffs. But I mean, when you have got a player, I mean, that's probably one of the things about Liam Watts. He's been thereabouts all year. He's not really had too many major injury problems. His fitness has been good. He's probably where some of the players will look at have been outstanding, you know, eye-catching, exciting footballers. He's probably in there for, as you said earlier, being that model of consistency.
Yeah, I think that's the word, is consistency. And, you know, I think Castleford really suits his game. You know, the way that they play, the way that Darryl Powell coaches. You know, he lets them play what they see. He lets them play expansive rugby. So, yeah, Liam Watts has certainly led the way for Castleford this year. And, you know, I think a lot of the talk that we did, obviously, when they made the five, they were out of there, and it was kind of looked at. You know, we did the show with Luke Gale, and a bit of a bonus to make the top five. I don't know whether Darryl Powell will see that. You know, they want to go on, and once they're involved, they want to go on and make Old Trafford. But I think they'll see it as a positive season with, as you said, with injuries that they've had, and certainly to key players. And
moving on to, you know, the next player on the shortlist. Another player not involved in playoff football anymore after Warrington went out, but Blake Austin, the favourite for Man of Steel coming into the season, the big name signing coming over from Australia, and it lived up to that hype for the most part, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely so. He was a big signing for Warrington, no doubt, and he didn't disappoint. You know, he had some outstanding performances. You know, I think he was leading the try scoring charts for a number of weeks. Unfortunately, that tailed off. You know, unfortunately for Warrington, should I say, tailed off towards the back end of the year. Obviously, he missed the Challenge Cup final through injury, and then never really got going again in their bid for the playoffs.
No coincidence, really, that Warrington's dropping form at the back end of the season coincided with, you know, with
massively. I mean, when you've got, what I like about Blake's game is, you know, he's an influential seven. A lot goes through him. He's obviously got the talk, he's got the kicking game, but he's a guy who likes to run at defences as well. He likes to run with the ball, as we can see from his try scoring record. And he's an exciting player to watch. But the thing is, when you've got players like that, unfortunately, when injuries do occur to them players, the team loses hell of a lot.
I mean, it was pretty telling to me in that playoff game against Castleford. Took a knock about half an hour. He came out at half time, tried to run, shook his head to the physio and said it's not happening. When you have a kind of talisman in a team like that, how much confidence drops out of the dressing room when he walks back in and says, I can't go back.
Yeah, massively. You know, it's massive in individual games like that. You know, when you're losing, and certainly when it's not going your way as well, like it wasn't against Castleford. And it's amazing how much them injuries hurt more when things are not going your way on the field. But yeah, it'd be a big loss to Warrington when he's not playing, as I said, because so much of what Warrington do goes through Blake Austin. That when he's not there, you know, it's a big job for somebody else to fill.
And plenty of reason for optimism for Warrington fans looking at next year. I mean, assuming that they play Gareth Widdop in the halves, which I assume they will next to Blake. That's one hell of a halfback pair, and it could be potentially a Great Britain halfback pair.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you know, in regards to what I said about Blake Austin, you know, he pretty much runs the show for Warrington. Well, that next year might take a bit of the pressure off him to allow him to do even more of the off the cuff, you know, influential running game that he's proven that he can do. Gareth Widdop, outstanding player. Again, you know, he's got the direction, he's got the kicking game. You know, he's got the skill. He's got a running game himself. So yeah, Warrington. I think it's obviously a great signing for them with Gareth Widdop next year, and him teaming up with Blake Austin could be a formidable half-back pairing.
And we spoke about Blake Austin playing to the line, taking teams on, being a real ball playing half-back. He obviously has that option to distribute as well, but 18 tries compared to 12 assists shows that he's what kind of player he is. But I think for me, perhaps the impressive thing with Blake was that he came in with all the hype. Quite often we see these NRL players come in with a lot of hype around them, and it takes them a few weeks, a few months maybe to get used to the Super League style of football. Blake just kind of stepped in and immediately looked like the player that he was talked up to be.
Yeah, and I think probably extra pressure for him as well, because I think you talk about the big name Aussies who come in and all the hype and don't deliver. I think that's been the case at Warrington for a few occasions. So Blake, obviously there was a lot of talk about him coming into Super League, and as you say, it didn't disappoint. When you talk about his running game, you see how skillful he is, how quick he is. I was with Blake yesterday at the Great Britain England Knights session, and you don't realise what a big bloke he is as well. So you see why he creates the havoc that he creates on when running with the ball.
And obviously as part of that setup, you get to have a little bit of a closer look at him in training from a bit of a coach's perspective. Is it the little bits that he does, or is he a real kind of standout organiser? And
yeah, I think obviously we're not doing much at the moment in regards to that, but you can see he's an influential player. You can see that from Warrington's games, and he's got the leadership skills. He directs his team around the park, but when it comes to sticking the foot down and having a go himself, he's got the ability.
And another big name import from the NRL, of course, was Lachlan Coote. And he's a lot of talk about St Helens losing Ben Barber at the end of last year. Two very different kind of players. One was a real strike runner, a real threat with the ball, and Lachlan Coote's come in and added a bit more of a pivot role, a bit more of a ball player. But what an impact he's had at Saints.
Yeah, he's been outstanding, and I said from day one that he would be. I knew Lachlan and see what he would bring to St Helens. There was always going to be an extra bit of added pressure when Ben Barber left, because there were big boots to fill, and certainly the current Steve Prescott man of steel, and it was a big move for Lachlan, but his game's just got everything. He's got the strike that Ben Barber had, but as you say, he's got the creativity as well. But what he's got as well is an absolute solid defence. It's very much like having Paul Wellens at the back, where if anybody breaks, it's okay because he's behind you. And same with his retrieving of the ball. I think he's been outstanding. But what he has done is created like that third half back out there in regards to them edge plays and giving some world class passes.
You mentioned Paul Wellens. It is a little bit scary when you look at who St Helens have had at fullback over the years. If a St Helens fullback was the win man of steel 2 years in a row, does that tell you something about the way that Justin Holbrook's coached and the way that he set those teams up to really bring those players into the game? Yeah,
I think so. I think Saints have proven that, and I think that's why they've had the success that they've had. In the last couple of years. I know we're trophyless for last year, but obviously been outstanding this year, and I think that the way that Justin's had them playing and the ability to move teams around the park and actually play football, which the fullback is a massive part of it. We've seen Benny Barber on the back of many a player last year, and Lachlan no different. But as I say, I just think Lachlan's got that extra edge because of his vision, and you could stick Lachlan in at 6 or 7 and he'd do a job for me from there, because he's got that vision, he's got that ability to play.
He almost feels like a perfect complement to that Saints team in a lot of ways, because Johnny Lomax, we've just said off there how he might feel slightly hard done by to not be in that top 5. He has been superb all year, but when you look at that back three, Grayson, Makinson, outside of those pivots, if you can be creative with the ball and get the ball out to those edges, they're such a threat, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and I think that's been a lot of Saints' success is defensive line. You don't know where the ball's going, because there's so many people there that can create and that can cause you trouble. And I think going against Johnny, for me personally, the best player in the Super League this year. But he's not in the top 5, and maybe that's to do the way the scoring system is. At Saints, you've got players who, I don't do the Saints games. I've not done the Saints games, being obviously an ex-Saints player. But you could look at a Saints game and how you pick 3 players to score 3-2-1 between Lachlan Coote, between Luke Thompson, Alex Walmsley, Tommy Makinson, Matt Percival, who consistently week in, week out. And maybe that's gone against Johnny because he's been consistently good as well.
And 2 more obviously on this list, and they come up against each other on Friday night, which in itself is going to be a fascinating battle, as it was 2 weeks ago when Wigan and Salford came together in what was a pretty classic playoff game. Let's take a look at Jackson Hastings. We got a glimpse of him at the end of last year in the qualifiers, and he looked brilliant then. I remember him making his debut against Leeds, last game of the regular season. Only played 20 minutes and did enough to excite everyone. And again, he's just continued that on. The number that jumps out is 36 assists in a season. Not only shows you the type of player that he is, but also the way that Ian Watson has used him as a coach, and the way that they've channeled so much through Jackson Hastings.
Yeah, I think the way they've channeled so much through him on and off the field. I think he's thrived in what he's done around Salford, off the field. I think he looks a happy man. I didn't know Jackson, to be honest, before he come to Salford, and I believe he's had issues in the past, but he looks a different character than you could ever imagine. And I think a big part of that is he's really bought into what that Salford community, and he's just enjoyed his football, and he's obviously a very, very talented player. And I think that responsibility he's thrived off, and very much like Blake Austin, I think his running game is equally as good as his distribution game.
And people will talk about him in an attacking sense with the ball in hand. He does bring it to the line. He does add an extra threat as a runner. But again, when I was looking at the numbers, 2 things that really jumped out was one, 418 tackles, which are half-back. He's not just hiding out on the edges. He is getting stuck in defence and has made some really important tackles. And one against Tommy Makinson against St Helens early on in the season, with just kept flying across to cut him off. But also 19 errors across a regular season for a player that has the ball in their hands that much. For a player that gets chucked the ball in offloads, and the way that Salford play, that's well under 1 error a game. That's quite an impressive stat. Really.
That's very impressive. I didn't know that stat, and it just shows the skill level of the guy and the standards that he sets himself. Speak about the Man of Steel award and what it means, as I said, consistency, and Jackson's obviously done that. Make no bones about it, he's a big part of, probably the major part of where Salford are, and why they're involved in a semi-final on Friday.
And also, for a player so young, he's got such an important role in that team in terms of the way that he organises. He seems to be the real focal point. He's played with different half-back partners throughout his time at Salford. Obviously, Rob Louis for the first time this season, and then first half of the season, and Loa Haya for the second. And nothing really changed when those 2 half-backs interchanged in terms of the way that they played in the organisation. Yeah,
and I think that's something. I think that's something that a world-class 7 has got to have. Is that ability, that cheekiness, that not scared of telling people what to do and where to go. I know I played with Sean Long for 12 years, and he's got a job to do. And the best ones will do it, no matter who's in the way, and direct players and tell players where to go. And that's half the job of a good 7. And Jackson's certainly done that. He is the talisman at Salford, and probably being under a coach who was an outstanding 7 himself. I grew up with Ian Watson, playing against Ian, and he was that cheeky 7 who directed play and reads a game well, and he obviously reads it well as a coach. Massive raps for Watto for what he's done at Salford.
And those two have obviously got a really good working relationship. I think you could see even improvements from that game against Wigan to the game against Cass last weekend. Just the way that Salford were changing the point of attack, coming against the grain, little drop-offs. They'd obviously looked at what they did against Wigan.
I think a massive part of that for Salford going into that Cass game was probably the confidence. Really believed in why they're in this position, and I think that's going to be the interesting one on Friday against Wigan. That I think Salford, there'll be a different Salford side than we've seen at the beginning of the year. I think because they know that they've earned this opportunity, and for them to make their first ever grand final would be, what a story that would be.
Oh, it'd be superb. I mean, obviously they play Wigan on Friday night for a place in that grand final, and we can kind of move quite smoothly into that. Jackson Hastings, of course, replacing George Williams at Wigan next year as George moves on to Canberra. Is that quite a like for like replacement in terms of their style?
No, I'd say a bit different. I wouldn't say George is as vocal or as. George is probably more of a running six. Jackson Hastings is an out-and-out seven who will control the game. I think George. My feel on George is he doesn't like that responsibility of what everybody else does. George likes to play. George is a player. He's got natural ability and plays what's in front of him. Obviously, a great running game, great short kicking game as well. Certainly near the line on that left side. Whereas I think Jackson pretty much covers all the field. But them two players are going to be massive indicators for their two teams, and probably which two of them play the best, their team will win.
And you touched on it slightly at the beginning of the show about George Williams' performances have, one, improved as Wigan's have throughout the year. And those two are obviously linked, but also once the speculation about where he was going to be next year was kind of out of the way. So came out of the shell again, and we saw the George that we'd seen last season.
And I think that's what George likes. I think no pressure, just go out and play. And he's a natural rugby player. And I think maybe at the beginning of the year, whether there was other issues as well. Obviously, Wigan was a bit of an upset camp at the time with not knowing who the coach was, where the coach was who was going to be next, and all that. And then obviously the talk of George Williams going to the NRL. I think once that come out and obviously the coaching situation was sorted, Wigan started to play, and obviously they kicked on at the right end of the season. When the business end counts, and George has been a big indicator in their performances. Certainly the back 3 or 4 months of the season.
I always forget how young George Williams is as well. He's not 25 until the end of this month. He seems like he's been around for a long time. He must feel, and those around him must feel, that moving to the NRL he can improve further, which is great for England and Great Britain. Yeah, definitely.
It's obviously you see what some of the boys who have gone over and done in the NRL. Today John Bateman's been named as the Dally M second row of the year in his first year in the NRL. And I think at times we underestimate how good our players are. I know that's something that Wayne Bennett always says. He's don't underestimate your competition and what your players can bring. They grew up in Super League, and I think George Williams could go over to the NRL and do exactly the same.
And I'm not going to ask you who you think's going to win it, but I will ask you, you've mentioned Johnny Lomax, any honourable mentions outside the shortlist that you've stood out for you?
I think Johnny's the obvious one. Johnny's the obvious one. I think he's been outstanding this year. Probably I see more of Saints games. I think Luke Thompson's been outstanding. Probably the number one prop in the game. I'd say in the game, this side of or bottom end of the hemisphere, I think just the way he plays is phenomenal. I think we've seen that on Friday in the win over Wigan. And
just lastly, before we wrap up, we've spoken about these outstanding players, but just to quickly, the award named after Steve Prescott, of course, who we lost a few years ago. Just a word from you on, one, the man, and two, the work that foundation that I know you're very closely linked with.
Yeah, I mean, the man, what an inspirational fella. One thing I've always said with Steve, I do a lot of talks and speak about Steve, is, let's not forget what an unbelievable rugby league player he was as well. One of the best fullbacks in the game. But then to go on and do what he did, in life after diagnosis, in inspiring people, raising millions of pounds with the Steve Prescott Foundation. Just an unbelievable character, and I don't think there is a more fitting award to be named after somebody than the Man of Steel, because he was one tough hombre and a great bloke to boot. Obviously with the foundation, it's just going from strength to strength. That was always going to be the challenge. Unfortunately, when we lost Steve in 2013, was keeping that foundation going. It just seems to have gone from strength to strength, and all credit to them and Martin Blondell and Lindsay for keeping that going.
Yeah, a fitting note to end on. I think a superb legacy. We will find out who will be lifting that award in his name on Sunday night. There's some fantastic players up, and you can make a case for any one of the shortlist. Let's be honest, you can watch that award ceremony live on the Betfred Facebook page throughout the evening. We'll be live first and foremost from 6:30, so please do tune in if you aren't attending the event at the Lowry. Scully, massive thank you for coming on. Another really big week. They're all huge at this end of the season, of course, and this one's a little bit different as well because we've got that individual award at the end of it. So thank you for joining us, and thank you to you for watching and listening, and we'll be back next week with more from the Insight Show.